Hello together. So, welcome to the next panel, which is on Belarus free expression in the face of repression. We are very happy, so to say, even though we are all more or less in black, which doesn't mirror, hopefully, the whole situation in Belarus, which we're going to talk about. We're very happy that we are going to have this panel in its own right, so to say, just on Belarus. We had Russia before. Belarus is always, of course, being dwarfed politically, culturally by Russia, not only because of Russia is so big in its history and culture and so dominant in Eastern Europe, but also because of our distorted, so to say, misconception or conception on Eastern Europe. That's a little bit as an introduction. We are going to talk about repressions in Belarus. You all remember maybe the very impressive pictures from 2020 when hundreds of thousands of Belarusians took on the streets in Belarus, standing in for free and fair elections, against violence, for solidarity, for self-organization, for democratic rights. Unfortunately, the regime, the long-time regime of Lukashenko, cracked down on the protests very quickly, and this crackdown is actually it's going on until today. So even today, we have on average sometimes monthly between 250 still arrested Belarusians in total since 2020-21. More than 50,000 Belarusians have been persecuted. More than 5,000 criminal cases have been taken out against Belarusians. More than 1,500 NGOs have been liquidated in Belarus. They had to leave the country as media companies, independent media, journalists, they had to flee the country. Independent journalism is practically, it's not possible anymore in Belarus. And so because of the repressions, hundreds of thousands of Belarusians had to leave the country. They now live in, they had to go into exile, a topic we are talking about during this panel. They're now living in Georgia, in Lithuania, in Poland. Not many, but some in Germany as well. So that's our topic, and these repressions, of course, they target not only the ordinary Belarusian, but also literature, culture, art, music. The cultural sphere played a huge role during those protests, not only during the protests, but also during the whole time of the Lukashenko regime, maintaining and sometimes even widening the spaces, the free spaces of culture. I'm a little bit cautious about using the word free, of course, but there were some freer spaces until 2020 for literature, culture and art, and which is not possible anymore. So this as a little introduction. As you can tell, we do this panel here in English. If you need translation, we have actually translation into German, so you can pick up some microphones over there and get the German translation here on air. So hello to our viewer on stream as well. And now I'm going to introduce you finally our very prominent and competent panel here, and I'm very happy, so to my right, to introduce Olga Gapeva, and I can't do it by heart, so I can tell a lot about you, but to be more precise, I guess. So, Olga Gapeva is one of the most significant voices of contemporary Belarusian poetry and literature. She was born in Minsk. Besides being a poet, writer, translator, she holds a doctor in linguistics. She writes in Belarusian German and has received numerous prizes and awards for her work. Her poetic and literary work revolves around questions of identity, the role of language in authoritarian systems and in gender contexts. She currently she's in exile as well. You are nomad, something we're going to talk about later. As you call yourself, a DAD artist in Berlin program. She's a fellow there at the moment. Your latest book in German translation is Trapezherz. I don't know how to translate it actually into English. The Trapezheart. Yeah, that's good. Okay, Trapezheart. Yeah. And your upcoming novel in German translation will be available from February, I think, at the Austrian publishing house Droschel. Yes. Then we have, I start on the other side, it's Alla Pichalskaya. She's a researcher of Belarus visual culture with focus on the construction of identity in everyday practices within visual artifacts such as typefaces, money, design, books, etc. Research of Belarus graphic design and mass print history. And since October 2023, she got a research fellowship from the Department of Arts Liberal at Warsaw University. She holds a PhD in art criticism from Vilnius Arts Academy, and her work has been published in several renowned arts magazines. Here on the book fair, she is a representative of the Belarusian Book Institute, and I all recommend you already to have a visit at the stand, which is in Alla Hall 3, level 1, 4, level 1, E96. Yes, E96. So when you, that's the reason why you're all here. If you want to get to know some Belarusian books and how the publishing works in exile. Then we have in the middle, in the center, it's Alina Koshik. She's a Belarusian journalist, TV host and project manager. In September 2022, she was nominated to the Belarusian United Transitional Cabinet of Svetlana Tikhanovskaya with responsibility for national revival to develop Belarusian culture and education, something we're going to talk about a little bit later. And she studied history and teaching in English at the Jaka Kupala State University of Rodna and politics at the University of Warsaw. For the past 15 years, she worked for the Belarusian exile TV program Belsat, which is located in Poland. And she set up numerous social projects and is co-founder of the Center for Belarusian Solidarity in Warsaw and in Belkult 2.0, as well as a club of Belarusian women in Warsaw. So very prominent, competent panel, as you already could see, but I start with Volga actually. And I would start because we thought, for those not knowing Belarusian, because Belarusian language, I always emphasize this, is a language of its own right. It's like Russian and Ukrainian, it's an Eastern Slavonic language. It's not a dialect or anything, and we thought it would be nice to hear some Belarusian in the beginning, but Volga said I should actually read out an abstract of her poem. I'm not a Belarusian.
In Belarusian?
Yeah, in Belarusian, so I'm not a native speaker, but I practiced and I try my best. So, and the abstract of this poem is actually from an essay of yours, which has been awarded with a famous award last year or 2 years ago. Last year it was, yes. And the essay is called Defense of Poetry in Times of Permanent Exile. Yes, very good essay, which hits the topic here directly. So the poem, Mora można zamienić wozora rечкой, Волхи на платаны, белорусское местечко на швейцарскую wiosку, и все одно сидеть на дроланной лавце, думаючи про ничто. I hope that was not too bad. Okay. Yeah, and so that you could understand what the poem is about, the English translation by Annie Rutherford. The sea can be replaced with a lake, the lake with a river, poplars with plane trees, the Belarusian town with the Swiss village, but you're still sitting on a wooden bench thinking of nothing. So voilà. I think in the essay you actually write, language is never neutral, never objective, it's always political. Language is a very powerful tool that creates reality. That's what you actually thematize in the poem, or try to thematize, so to say. So what's the reality you actually try to create or try to describe now, being forced into exile and leaving behind the coordinates you were used to living in Belarus?
Thank you, dear Inga. This is a very strange reality, and I think that I'm, as a representative of the Belarusian culture, find myself, maybe as a Belarusian culture in general, in this very strange second phase of liminality. Yeah, I mean, if we think about these rites of passages, like when you start from one point, then there is the transitory thing, and then there is the new stage. At the moment, I myself also, and the situation where I live, I find myself in this transitory point, because I'm no longer in Belarus, and coming back is not actually possible due to all the reasons we know. But I'm still not a German author, let's say, yeah, or I'm not yet fully incorporated, although I feel myself like an author, very, very privileged in a German or German-speaking scene. But still, my personal situation or identity is somewhere in the middle, yeah. So like I'm not neither there nor here. So this marginal point, and I'm trying, I think, or not trying, I just live through this life and describe what's happening to me. And that's why there was this essay last year, which I actually wrote 21, when I was in this German exile, or German-speaking exile, and I started to receive the questions from the journalists, which I've never received so often before, like, Volja, where is your home country? What is homeland for you? How do you feel here yourself as an exilantin? And for me, it was so painful to talk about this, and so painful to think about myself as an exilantin, because I didn't want to be a writer in exile. I just wanted to be a writer, because we all know that sometimes this exile thing, they mean something like maybe not good enough, but because of the political situation and so on and so on.
It's about passports and borders.
So you get some support or something. Yeah, and but the reality is like this. The other thing is I wasn't ready to call myself an exilant or emigrantin, also because of the other reason, and it's a linguistic reason or language reason, because from my point of view, these words are created from the point of view of the state. Yeah, and I'm very critical about the concept of state as it is, and how it defines us as people. And so if we look into such words as exilantin, emigrantin, refugees, they are all words which were coined by the, let's say, state propaganda, or it's like state point of view. And that's why for me, I try to escape this, being inscribed into the state-defined words. And I came up with nomade.
Yeah. To break out of this linguistic cage, or maybe you can call it cage. But still you are a nomad. You call yourself a nomad.
Still I am an exilant.
And you're in exile, so unfortunately. But how do you, that's a big thing. So you had to leave your country. You can't return because of the repressions. How do you survive? Like on a very down-to-earth base.
Yeah, as I've said, I was really lucky because I speak German. I have a publishing house in Austria, and the book was with essay was published by a German publishing house, so Droschel und Verbrecher Verlag und dann Häuser Verlag. And I managed to get the scholarships from the German-speaking countries, and that was the way how I managed to survive. But it also not really easy, because every time when you apply, you cannot be sure if you get it. And then in a year, you face the same problem, because usually those scholarships are like, you are happy if you have it for 1 year, and then you get the place where you can live, you have some monetary support, and then I also have readings here in Germany, and it also pays my bills, so to say.
So, yeah, on the one side it's good, of course, because you're being supported by those scholarships, but of course there's a lot of uncertainty. So because those programs are limited,
exactly,
and as long the longer the situation proceeds, so to say, with Belarus, so that you can't return, the more problematic I would say it gets. Yeah. So that's how I come to Ala. She, as I said, she's a representative of the Belarusian Book Institute. They are being located in Warsaw, so you're just on the way to becoming a legal organization in Poland. So first question is, what do you do? So you're here to promote Belarusian publishing in exile, to help writers maybe being in exile. So what are your plans, ideas? What is realistic actually? So,
thank you for this question. And the idea with this initiative of Belarusian Book Institute comes from the situation that many people being in exile in different countries, as you mentioned, in Georgia, in Poland, in Lithuania, they face the same problems. They have to continue their professional activity, and from the other side, they have to adapt to the local laws and to find the forms of legal work at the country. And we are all from we all have the same origins, still Belarus, and we have the same culture, and we share the same language, and probably language is a medium which allows us to support these horizontal links, and that's why we think that Belarusian is very important here, because book is also such thing which requires a lot of infrastructure, and we are really happy that our publishers, who are expelled from the country as well, and whose books couldn't be distributed in the countries because of the legislations. Probably you heard about extremist legislations. We have some publishers who has in their portfolios about certain books recognized by Lukashenko regime as extremist books. So that means it's not illegal not only to publish these books in the country, but also it's dangerous for people to keep it at their home. So it's dangerous to read it. So that means because there is a legislation that they can disseminate extremist materials. And our idea with the Institute was that we somehow to face this problem of distribution of Belarusian books, because publishers, they somehow resume their works, or on their way to resume their works abroad, in Lithuania, in Poland. But the other question is the distribution, because it's not only the point to sell the books, it's also the infrastructure, how we know about the books are published. And here really all efforts are welcomed and are to place, because we need literary critics, we need designers, illustrators promoted, we need translators from Belarusian language into different languages. and from different languages into Belarusian. So I think that important efforts are really important, but institutions allow us to combine our individual efforts of publishers, literary critics, designers, and researchers as me.
Thanks, Ala. I'm really stunned by the energy, actually. We have, I didn't introduce myself, actually. It's not that important, but you can read it here on the screen. So I'm Ingo Petz, I'm a German journalist, and I'm the project, I had the project, the Belarus project, that's the German media project, decoder.org. So if you want to get informed on Russia, on Belarus, that's what we do at Decoder. And yesterday we published a story on Andrei Yanushkevich, who's a famous, so to say, Belarusian independent publisher. He got expelled. His publishing house had been declared extremist, and the books he published have been declared extremists. For example, from Belarusian writer Algiat Bakharevich brought one of his extremist books, actually, and fortunately it could be published in German at the Berlin publishing house, Edition Fototapeta, so the last book of Mr. A. The other book is Dogs of Europe. So I'm really stunned by the energy of Andrei Yanushkevich, because you can't imagine how much energy it takes to go all through this, because he has been jailed as well, he has been fined, then he had to leave the country, set up his own business, and now again he starts publishing books already in Poland, and that's the same with other publishers as well. So where does this energy comes from, actually, when you're already exhausted?
We are not.
You're not exhausted, okay, yeah.
Yes, we are full of energy, and of course, Andrei Yanushkevich is really active in publishing books, but also the problem he faces, as well as other publishers, that people who are in Poland, they have to learn or integrate into Polish society, and that means that their extra efforts to support their Belarusian identity and to buy Belarusian books. And right now it's quite difficult to distribute it even in Poland, because it's quite expensive to send it all over the country, and it's even more difficult to send it to Belarus or other countries. So that means that we have a lot of energy, but it's not still enough, and we have a lot of challenges.
Yes, and the energy is not endless, of course, and so we all hope for more, so to cautiously said, some more constructive dynamics in the area of Eastern Europe. Alina, the bridge to you. Repressions were always there under the regime of Lukashenko. So before 2020, I said that in the introduction, publishing houses, independent publishing houses, they already had been targeted, like the publishing house of Loginau, which is now being based in Lithuania, in Vilnius. But still there were niches of freedom, so to say. So the regime somehow tolerated the Belarusian independent literature, arts, and culture. So what's the reason why the regime now is so harsh, so repressive on Belarusian culture, literature, and the publishing houses since 2020?
Thank you for this question, dear friends. Thank you for your interest to our country. Thank you for organizing this panel on Belarus. For us, it's extremely important at the moment to speak about our country. Today, I came not alone. I came with Ihor Alinevich, who is Belarusian political prisoner. He's also writer. He wrote a book during his previous being in jail, Road to Magadan. And actually, Belarusian literature behind the bars became one of the trends on Belarusian literature, unfortunately. Today in my country we have more than 170,000 political prisoners. That's officially. Normally, we think that it's like even twice or 3 times more, because people reject to receive. They don't want to have this label political prisoner, because this makes their conditions behind the bars even more harsh. And if we are talking about people who are dealing somehow with culture, this is like one of the main groups which is imprisoned at the moment in Belarus. Why authorities, why regime is so harsh with culture? What we Belarusians showed in 2020, that we want to live in free, independent and democratic country, that we made our choice. We want to change the country. And at the moment, the regime is in Belarus just because of using large scale of repressions. Our historians are comparing the scale of repressions to Stalinist time. People refuse to talk about politics, and not only politics, even in their own homes. What they're doing, they are cutting social links, which is very painful for people. But what they want to atomize the society, not allow people to see and to feel their strength as a community. The other thing is that Lukashenko's power is based at the moment on force, repressions, and of course one thing is supporting of Russia. That is why officially at the moment in Belarus they have politics of Russification, which goes through like a lot of places and spaces in our country. In education, in visual science, replacing Belarusian Latinka to Russian language, so-called patriotic upbringing in schools. That means making our kids like ideologically vanished, using propaganda methods and using Russian propaganda at the moment. They are replacing Belarusian language everywhere. Can you imagine that in our country we don't have the first circle of education in our own native Belarusian language? It's not possible in Belarus to start from kindergarten and finish university all in Belarusian language. We don't have any university which teach totally in Belarusian language. Up to official statistics, just 10% of Belarusian school kids are learning at Belarusian language. But these schools are mostly in villages. In the biggest cities, it's almost not possible to see. Why they're doing this? And they see that these repressions on culture are becoming severe and severe and severe, because they understand that in Belarus, at the moment, we have silent war. This is the war for brains. That's why they want to replace our own Belarusian identity to Russian imperialistic politics. We don't want to allow this. That is why each sign of Belarusian, everything with strengths, Belarusian identity is so important. That's why for us it's so important to be here and to show you that Belarusian books, Belarusian worlds, and Belarusian language are still alive.
Dziękuję, Alina. Thank you. Another question, you said, so the regime tries to cut actually the cultural links, the social links between people being in exile and in Belarus. Is there actually a chance, and here maybe you can also explain a little bit, what are you doing, what's your job or your within the cabinet of Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya. So is there a chance maybe, because Belarusians are all spread over these countries, and they are occupied with arranging their new lives, so finding work, doing all the legal, proceeding all the legal stuff they have to proceed through. So is there a chance that you keep the Belarusians in exile together by culture and language?
I think this is the only chance. To keep us all together using culture, using Belarusian language, and strengthening Belarusian identity. Our situation is unusual at the moment because we are not only homeless, we left state, and actually our state is fighting against its own citizens. After 2020, 500,000 of Belarusians, the best Belarusians, they left country. And Svetlana Tikhanovskaya created Transitional United Cabinet as a government in exile, and I'm like a member of this government. This is a kind of executive body. We are trying to keep Belarusian agenda. We try to promote Belarus on different levels. My job is to promote Belarusian culture, Belarusian education, historical remembrance, and also informational politics. It's like the whole universe for a couple of ministers, but you know, our resources are very limited, but we are trying to do our best. We're trying to advocate our country. We're trying to talk to politicians to persuade them why Belarus is important nowadays. Because without Belarus, we cannot build the new architecture of security in Europe. We need to think it systematically. If we are thinking about recreating the world after the Ukraine win, and we are absolutely sure that Ukraine should win this war, and we need to do everything for this. But when we're thinking about rearranging of the world after the Ukrainian victory, we need also to think about Belarus, because if Belarus still left as authoritarian country, Europe never will be safe. And here in Germany, you have to understand this as well, because it's not about only us. We Belarusians, we are part of Europe, historically, mentally, but for last 2 centuries, they wanted to convert Belarus to to turn Belarus to Russia. But Belarusians showed that we respect our European roots, we respect our European culture, we respect our European history, and now we as political forces, democratic opposition of Belarus, in the last conference, New Belarus, which was held in Warsaw in August, we made a declaration of European choice for Belarus. This was political declaration. So this is where we see our country.
Thank you, Alina. Volga. You as a master, so to say, of Belarusian language, do you see, because in Belarus, Alina explained that as well, Belarus was always in competition with Russian, because since 1995 Russian is a state language again in the Republic of Belarus because of Lukashenko, and of course studies in Belarusian are not possible. It's very hard to keep this or maintain and even support Belarusian language in Belarus. So maybe Belarusian language now in exile, there's also a chance for the language because it's now it can be supported and been spoken as a language of its own, or is it all now in competition with the countries of exiles of Belarusian? So it's complicated, but how you see it as a...
Yeah, I mean, I think you answered your own question already. Yeah. But yeah, this is not easy because just now I was in Vilnius at Pratmova Festival, which was also organized by our colleagues, and I met a person who is organizing the schools for children, and he said it was really problematic even to get a group in Vilnius for children who wants to learn in Belarusian, and I understand why, because when you're in Lithuania, kind of, what for do you need Belarusian? I mean, some people can think like that. And to be integrated into the other society, and at the same time to maintain your own identity, Belarusian language, Belarusian, it's not so easy. It's a real challenge for normal people, for ordinary people. And I mean, how strong you have to be. I mean, really, such people for me are really heroes and heroines. Yeah, the other thing is like how the language, I mean, what are the changes which the language undergoes, or in general what happens. I think that now I try to see also, I mean, nothing is black and white, yeah? I mean, we always have these grades of shades and colors, manchmal. The thing is, maybe the good thing which we can see from this terrible situation is that Belarusian authors are now more or less visible due to this political situation. And sadly enough, it happens very often in literature market, I mean, yeah, because publishing houses, I mean, big publishing houses mostly interested in the books which they can sell. And in order to sell them, you need some story to sell. If it's a political story, great. If it's poetry, and if it's not about presidents and if it's about spiders and I don't know, ducks and empathy, maybe it's not so easy. So that's why the other problem mentioned here is we don't have really many translators from the Belarusian into other languages. Yeah, so like in German, you can count them, maybe one hand, maybe second.
4, 5, 6.
Yeah, exactly. Who work professionally, and Belarusian literature is quite a big literature. You have to understand we're 10 million people. I mean, it's not 1 million or 2 million like some Baltic states. And still such a small amount of people who speak Belarusian languages and can translate, and that's the problem for the publishing houses as well. Yes, I mean, how to do that? The other thing is that also, for example, what I as an author, writer can do, and what I do, sure, half of my readings when I speak with the German audience last maybe 15 minutes. It's always educational part, because the first question I get when I read in Belarusian, and everybody said, "Oh, it's such a beautiful language, great, thank you very much." Then I say some word about it, and then the question is, "Oh, so Belarusian, it's not Russian, right?" Yes, and it's not dialect, and yes. And then I'd say also about a couple of words about the history, and it's like, wie gesagt, how I have already said, it's like half of my readings is also educational part. And now what I'm trying to do also ab und zu, from time to time, is to make this little, how to say this, parachutist. Yeah, partisan parachutist yeah. Strategy. For example, my next novel will be in German, and I decided to keep the Belarusian word in the title, which is Samota. In German, that would be Einsamkeit. But I decided, let the German learn one Belarusian word. And so it will be like a little reminder also that, or also, how to say, enrichment of a German language as well.
That's very true. That's what
I may add to your question.
I just wanted to add, that's what I said in the introduction, actually. If you don't know Belarus, if you don't have any ideas on the country, you don't get interested. You know, maybe only very curious people, so to say. That's why we need to adjust our conception of Eastern Europe on Belarus, on Ukraine. That's part of the problems why we have the debates and discourses we have at the moment. So, Alina, but you wanted to
Yeah, I wanted to add up to question of language, Belarusian and Russian. And actually, Belarusians were speaking Belarusian language till half of 20th century, mostly, when they moved to communist cities of Belarus and they were like forced to use Russian languages. Russian language was supposed to be like a higher level of language, and Belarusian languages was like rural, not very popular. But what changed after 2020, the perception of the language. People started to understand that Belarusian language is the language of future for our country. They know that this language can give us not only possibilities to keep our country independent, but also to have a career, to have normal development of the country. But what is interesting, yes, Belarusian and Russian languages are close languages. And even if people don't speak Belarusian in their daily life, they do understand. So that won't be a difficult task, you know, slightly to move and to use politics of Russification. And if we are talking now on the concept of Belarus, how we think Belarus at the moment, being outside the Belarus, we feel that we need to build Belarus wherever we are, having Belarus with us in our hearts. We are trying to have concept of our country like beyond the states, beyond the maps. We believe that this concept of traditional state is old-fashioned at the moment. We are building digital state with digital citizenship, and we already have this big digital platform which unites Belarusians who are abroad. Of course, in Belarus, it's extremist also platform. But anyway, we are thinking about Belarus like wider than the territory that possesses Lukashenko at the moment.
Thank you, Ada. Ada, and a question to you directly, picking up on what Alina and Volga said. So what can the international community do, the European community, to support more independent publishing from Belarus, Belarusian literature, especially authors? I need to say, and that's what I mentioned before, because I'm covering Belarus since 1994, so there are some positive developments, believe it or not, even in Germany. So because you have more and more panels like this, events, cultural events on Belarus. So cultural institutions in Germany already recognize Belarus as in its own right, so to say. So, but it's not enough, because there's a lot of it's complex with education, so we need to just learn a little bit more on Eastern Europe, on Belarus. So what can we do to support you?
Yes, it's a difficult question, but of course important, because currently, as we mentioned before, all those who work in creative industries, they work from project to project. Yeah, that's usually lasts for a certain period, and then you have to start something new. And interest to Belarus is increasing because of the political turmoils, but afterwards it's decreasing. And that's why the main probably challenge is to deal with these waves of interest, and to develop Belarusian culture. You need comprehensive and development, and that's why it's important that some initiatives have to be institutionalized, and that in this way at least to have like more sustainable support. And I also would like to add, for example, to the opportunities we have, that Alina mentioned that we have Belarusian language not only based on Cyrillic alphabet, but also on Latin alphabet. And as the repression started not only in 2020, but people started to be expelled from the country since the beginning of 2000s. So we have a generation who got education in Polish, in Lithuania, in Germany, in other European countries, and they are much more familiar with Latin alphabet. And for younger generations, they're really more enthusiastic about developing Belarusian language based on Latin alphabet. For example, because the biggest part of their life, they live in the space with Latin alphabet. And as they are active enough, so I believe that this will have an opportunity to develop. And this is one of the example of that, of course, repressions are really bad and harmful for Belarusian culture, but from the other side, we have this kind of opportunities. But the main question is, of course, is it somehow could be developed in a tendency, visible and visible first of all to the Belarusian readers, consumers, and of course for European partners.
We have 3 minutes left maybe, and we still, yes, and at the end, no, we are going to listen, of course, to your poem, Volga, but maybe Alina, you keep it short.
Yeah, I just want to add what else we can do for Belarus altogether. Dear colleagues, please take care, go to Belarusian, stand here, talk to our publishers. We really need more translations of Belarusian books to German language. We are very open to create different cultural projects, bilateral projects, which are amazing. We have fantastic artists. Believe us, Belarusians are very creative, very talented. And also my dream is to create a network of Belarusian institutes. Maybe Germany should be the first one where we will establish real Belarusian institute, a place for Belarusian culture and a place where we can share Belarusian culture with you. So we don't want to be in a bubble, we want to share our experience, our fantastic culture with you. So if you are interested, please come to us after the talk, after the discussion, and we can share contacts. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Alina. We also have representatives here of the publishing house Flaumbaum, which has been initiated by Svetlana Alexievich. So if you want to talk to them, you can find them also at the stand of the Belarusian Book Institute. So get interested in Belarus, read decoder.org maybe, so get basic information, not only basic, very complex information on Belarus as well. The topic is, as you could tell, very complicated, complex, but fascinating. Belarus is a fascinating culturally, historically country. So get interested. Thank you for being here with us, sharing your views here. Apart from the repressions in Belarus, thanks for your energy and your engagement on Belarus. And I'm not having the thanks to the book fair, of course, for initiating this, what we think is a very important panel, as I said. And I'm not having the last words. The last word is having the Belarusian poetry and language. So, Olga, Kalilaska.
Дякую. I will read it in 3 languages, so translators don't need to translate it. У некаторых людзей сэрцы знаходзіцца так высока, што даводзіцца браць лесвіцу, каб туды дабрацца. Некаторыя носяць сэрцы свае на рукаве, а іншыя дык зусім хаваюць у пятках. Здараецца, сэрца пераварочваецца ў целе, скочыць і абрываецца, нібы акрабат на трапецыі. Тады самы час выклікаць хуткую дапамогу, каб яго яшчэ можна было камусьці аддаць. English. Some people carry their hearts so high that you have to climb a ladder to reach them. Some people wear their hearts on their sleeve, while in others the heart sinks down to their shoes to hide. Sometimes it happens that the heart flips over in the body, skips and plunges like an acrobat from a trapeze. And then it's high time to call an ambulance so that the heart can still be given to somebody else. In German, English translation Annie Rutherford, German translation Matthias Göritz. Bei einigen Menschen hängen die Herzen so hoch, dass man die Treppe nehmen muss, dorthin zu gelangen. andere tragen ihr Herz auf der Zunge und wieder andere haben es fest in den Fersen versteckt. So passiert es, dass sich das Herz im Körper dreht und springt und stürzt wie ein Akrobat am Trapez. Dann wird es Zeit, den Krankenwagen zu rufen, damit es noch jemandem geschenkt werden kann. Danke.
Remember that Belarus is a country of two Nobel laureates. One, Svetlana Alexievich, she won Nobel Prize for Literature, and Ales Bialyatsky, who won Peace Nobel Prize, but he's also an author, he's an activist. At the moment he is in jail, so please remember about Belarusian political prisoners and fight for freedom. Thank you so much. Живи Беларусь!
Дякую.